You know that sound. It means the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
Let's take a look at the big board as did they hit the bell yet? Did they ring it?
They did. Ring, ring, ring,
looks
ring.
like the Dow still settling there, but up more than 300 points. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ also ending the day in the green. The S&P is up nearly 1.5%, and the NASDAQ is up also more than 1.5%.
Well, we are lucky enough to have Dory Wiley joining us. He is the president and CEO of Commerce Street Holdings. Dory, it's so great to have you.
Have you back?
Yeah,
great
have
to
you
see
back.
you.
Be back.
And it's great to have you on a day where the market's showing a lot of green, a good day. What was driving them?
It's an up day. Well, there was good news in the tech sector, particularly in semiconductors. Micron Technology leading the way, up over 7%, as well as Lam Research and others. And then also, I think some of the banking fears eased. Most of the banks were up over 1% today. So with that, volatility was down. The VIX was down close to 19, as a measure of volatility and fear. So it was a good day.
Now, you mentioned we're only a few weeks out from the SVB collapse, second largest bank failure in American history, and House lawmakers did question some regulators today on the collapse and how regulators missed it and how this company was mismanaged. How long do you think it will take, maybe this is the beginning, of Americans regaining their confidence in these regional banks?
Well, today was a good first step, right? Because we're in the green. But there were some things missed on all sides there. First of all, the management mismanaged the bank. Second, the regulators misregulated the bank and didn't heed the warning signs enough. And it made it a little tougher for Moody's. Moody's didn't come out until they tried to raise capital and said, you know what, we might downgrade you. Well, that doesn't help the week of the collapse.
Right.
So there were things all along there that people missed. And what did they miss specifically, that we all need to know? One is the bank was these are lessons we learned in the 80s, right? So I'm from Texas. You can tell by my accent. In the 80s, what did we learn? Texas invested in one industry primarily, or two industries, real estate and energy. And S&L, Savings and Loans, funded long-term mortgages with short-term deposits. And when rates went up, they went underwater and they went broke. Mm-hmm. All of that happened with Silicon Valley Bank. They were concentrated in VC and technology funds, as well as long-dated securities funded by short-term deposits, and they blew up. It's not a new lesson. They should have caught it. Management should have caught it. The Fed should have caught it. The regulators should have caught it. They didn't.
Well, Dory, I want to follow up with you about that, because when you're talking about the 80s, you're talking about major bank. We're talking about it right now, Silicon Valley Bank, regional banks. There's a lot of people who are wondering if big banks are a more stable investment for them, if they should be concerned about their regional banks. What do you have to say to folks out there wondering about that?
Yeah, they're not necessarily safer from a performance or capital or even a deposit perspective. The FDIC has not failed on a deposit since its formation, insured or uninsured, since 1934. It is probably the single best legislation. That sounds like an oxymoron, right? Single best legislation ever by man to smooth out business cycles, okay? And because confidence in the banking system is a big deal. So when you put your money in a community bank or in a big bank, as a depositor, it's safe. There's no moral hazard there. If you're an investor, that's different. The reason why I think people like to go to big banks is just, hey, they're too big to fail, so they'll be okay. But if a bank fails, the regulators take it over and they just move it to another bank. They don't fail on the deposits. They write a check out of the FDIC fund, and if they run out of money, of course, the taxpayer backs that up.
And you were saying to Errol and I just before this about how important a role these smaller regional banks play in the American economy overall.
Absolutely. Your community banks are vital. We're the only country in the world with a community banking system. Those community banks fund 70% of the businesses, small businesses, and small businesses do what? Provide 80% of all new jobs in our economy. There's a reason why the U.S. outperforms everyone else in the world, and the biggest reason, I think, is the community banking system, because no one else has it.
We've seen billions of dollars move from regional to the big banks, so perhaps that will shift back.
But there are plenty of banks that actually, we have a fund that invests in banks. It's a private fund, but we checked with every one of those. They're community banks. Every one of them are up in deposits. From this. Yes. So it really sort of depends on the bank and their relationship with their customers and the confidence they have in them.
All right. Very, very interesting. Dory, every time you're here, we learn something more. We feel a little bit more empowered to make financial decisions, and we always laugh.
You're very kind.
We love
Dory
that
Wiley.
Texan swang. Bring it back anytime.
Thank you.